Good morning, everyone. How's it going? Good morning, Jonathan. Already getting in there with the chat. Um, yeah. So vacation was exhausting, as most things are. No, my body decided to want to get sick while I was in Mexico. So the first few days were wonderful. Thursday, I thought I was going to die. I actually asked my wife to murder me. Um, she said she couldn't handle Mexican jail. I said valid. So. But back in the US of A, actually leaving town again today, headed to Chicago for a quick turnaround, going to a shop up there to profile a printer. So that should be good. I think it's a printer I've not actually worked on before. So I always like getting my hands on new equipment because it gives me an idea of what's kind of out there. Do me a favor, if you're watching, let me know in the chat, comment wherever you're watching from. Let me know where in the world you're watching from. I know Jonathan's over in California. Hey, Kevin. Yes, happy Labor Day. I kind of forget sometimes. Yes, this is technically a holiday. So when you let me know where you're watching, let me know if you're working on this holiday. I'm going to open up another browser here real quick because I know that over on Facebook, the comments don't update here on StreamYard because I'm streaming directly to my personal, and comments don't always pop up there. So anyway, all right. So the reason I picked the topic, if you saw the thumbnail or the title, you know that I'm about to stir the pot a little bit because I've been seeing a lot of people asking and talking about extended colors, 9 color, 13 color, as well as people are asking me personally. Like there's a couple of people I'm going to be working with in October that have extended color printers, and they're mostly running RGBO, which is what most people are running. And I'm going to probably tick off a few people with my opinion on this. But I'm not just going to give you my opinion. I'm going to give you some data to back it up and why I think my opinion is not necessarily right, but more correct than the current industry opinion. I hope that makes sense. Just playing around with the apps today. You know what? You have no idea, guys, how much benefit there is from just playing with your equipment. There's a shop in Jersey. I don't have permission to necessarily let you know who he is or what he's doing, but I was there doing some profiling. I helped set up Neo Stampa with their 2 existing machines, and then I left, and he immediately bought a fluorescent machine or an extended color machine. And then he also bought an X-Rite, and he had the profiling add-on for Neo Stampa. So he's building his own profiles, and he's learning a lot. And he is playing with it. And that's one thing that I wish I had. I wish I had an extended color printer. I don't. I just don't have the space for it. Marcelo, Brazil, fantastic. Thank you for tuning in. I'm glad the videos have been helpful. That is the goal. And Kevin's working in his shop today. Your Ohio State Buckeyes, Kevin, they were looking really good. And then they looked a little shaky, but they held out. They did okay. All right, so let's get into this. Why do I not like RGBO? And when we're talking about extended color printers, we're usually talking 9 color because the way the heads are arranged, you do it in groups of 4, and then the odd color is white. So normally, this printer here is a CMYK, so it'd be considered a 5 color printer because it's a CMYK and white. Good morning. And so this is a 5 color. When you do add colors to your system, each print head has 4 channels. So technically, you've got to add 4 colors to it. Now, there are other print heads, not necessarily for DTF. Think there's a lot of wide format inkjet, Epson. They've got some odd color combinations. But basically for DTF, your options are 5 color, 9 color, or 13 color. And I'm gonna delve into the 13 color in a minute. But when the first extended color printers came out with 9 colors, I'm not sure who chose the RGBO color combination, because in traditional extended color gamut printing, the extra colors that are added. So if you have like a flexo or offset print press, like the big dogs, they can add like just single colors to their mix. So they can go CMYK orange, CMYK orange green. What generally, if you look up extended color gamut, it's adding orange, green, and violet. Those are the colors that traditionally get added for to CMYK process to create more colors. And so obviously it's like the industry was like, we need 4 colors. What do we do? And so I'm not sure why the industry skipped over violet. I think that's one of the first ones that should have been included. I think it should have been red, green, violet, and something else probably, but it wasn't. And so what the industry decided to do was go RGBO. And my big beef with RGBO is the red and blue are almost completely pointless. In my testing that I did with an RGBO, a couple RGBO setups, the red was never used. Even when I did the red color RGB, like the R255 and then 00, it felt, the ICC profile felt it could do a better job of recreating that red with magenta, yellow, and orange. So when I was doing some testing with it, I was realizing that the system, the ICC profile, was using hardly any red or blue. And so when we were like selling the equipment, my biggest concern there was like, we're going to have a customer that buys the system, prints for 6 months. They've swapped out every other color. They've swapped out their cyan, magenta, yellow, black, orange, green, yet the red and blue are still the same red and blue that were in there when I started. And for those of you who have been running an RGBO setup for a while, are you going through a lot of red? Are you going through a lot of blue? And so here's why I think, and why science, whatever, the facts, the data, would say that this is a concern. So this is officially, like, here we go. So that's a scanned color gamut from my R2 Pro. But the thing I love about NeoStampa is it will show me the ink. So these are the colors of just the ink by itself, like the individual colors. So that's your cyan, that's your magenta, that's your yellow. These are all of the scanned colors. So these are all the swatches that the profile produced that I scanned in. And this is where all those colors land in a lab color space. Now, I've mentioned this before, that the lab, like RGB and CMYK, are device-dependent colors. So depending on what system you're in, the CMYK or RGB values will differ from equipment, machine, environment to environment. Lab color space is device independent. It doesn't care. It's just, this is what this color is. And so this is the colors that were printed out with the ICC in a lab space. So light, so we got dark to light. We've got red to green, and we've got blue to yellow. So that's the RGB or the lab color space that we're functioning in. So I'm just going to go back to these ink samples. And if we look at this, I mean, it's pretty impressive what CMYK can do. It is really genuinely an impressive feat that 4 colors can produce so much. But if you look at what's kind of missing, it's this arm here. There's a big gap here. There's also a pretty big gap here. And there's a smallish gap here. Anybody want to venture to guess what colors those are? Those colors are green, orange, and violet. That's why most traditional extended color gamut printers use orange, green, and violet. Now, the beauty of Neostampa, love Neostampa. I can pull up, let's see. Here we go. This guy right here is an RGBO system. Let me bump this guy up a little bit. There we go, so you can see him a little bit better. But these are the colors of the RGBO ink. So look, this is your blue ink. This is your red ink, your orange, and your green. So yeah, we use the green, massively filled it up. Use the orange. So part of the reason people think the RGBO adds so much to the gamut is literally the orange and the green. The orange and the green are doing the majority of the heavy lifting. But look, we're just kind of mucking it up in here. Now the blue, I would say maybe the blue does a little something here to fill in, but really, like, if you look at the white, like the body, it does a pretty good job of filling in that blue space using the mixing of the colors together. So it actually does a pretty good job with CMYK. So although I would agree, yes, this is filling in a space that isn't currently existing with the other inks, it's not doing a ton because of the capability of the cyan and the magenta inks to mix together. But look, this red here, completely pointless. I mean, literally completely pointless. So, I mean, even just looking at this, I would say that a better combination would be orange, green, violet, and blue. But then your violet's going to run like right in this area here. And so I don't know that it's necessarily going to be that much better. But this is an RGBO setup. So when I first looked at the RGBO, I was like, I don't like this. I don't like that there's two colors that are being added in that really aren't helping boost anything. Plus, all these colors, like with CMYK, right? We add more colors, it gets darker. And yes, for hitting some specific Pantones, the red and blue may help hitting those Pantones, but I already know from experience that it's not making that big of an impact. So when I was looking at it, as far as I understood, nobody had a violet color ink. I do know the ink bank does carry a violet colored ink. Now, I didn't know that before. So when I first worked on it, I was like, I think this RGBO thing isn't a valid option. I think green and orange are massive, huge help. The green helps so much in producing teals. Like it's shocking how much better the teals and turquoise colors are when you add that green in the mix. And with orange, you actually make a lot deeper, richer reds. Like the reds are pretty impressive when you add orange into that magenta yellow mixing of the recipe. But so I was thinking about it, and I always liked the idea of fluorescent colors, but the thing that I was running into is you could only use them as spot colors. So I was like, well, cool. We could do like a gamut that has orange and green, like CMYK orange and green, and then do fluorescence as spot colors. Because then you could, with one printer, produce a shirt that has black, blue, and a fluorescent yellow on it. Especially if you think like motorsports, a lot of motorsports uses fluorescent type colors, but they use multiple colors. And previous to this like playing around with the idea of extended colors, the only fluorescent printers were like dedicated fluorescents where it was just only fluorescent colors and that's all you could do. So I was like, well, this would be a cool step to be able to print normal CMYK, ICC, like just process colors, and then add fluorescence as a spot color. And then I learned that the boys over at Neostampa have been doing fluorescent integration in their sublimation ICC profiles for a long time. And so I was like, sweet. Well, let's see what happens. And what happened wasn't that we just got better, like that you could print fluorescent colors. It made all the colors, many of the brighter colors, much, much brighter. And so let's pop back over here and I'm going to show you whoops, wrong mouse. Oops. There we go. This is an RGBO. Sorry. This is an extended color with fluorescence. Now, looking at it from top down, you're like, okay, Jeremy, sorry. This fluorescent magenta seems to be taking up the same space as that red was until you look at it from the side. So what it does is it boosts some of these brightness in here. And what it ends up doing is it boosts the brightness of anything that might mix a little bit of that fluorescent yellow into it. So let me go to the profile samples. And these are the profile samples that it printed. And if you haven't noticed, this gamut is massive, especially when you compare it to the CMYK only one. I mean, look at that. That is just. We'll go back to body so you guys can see that a little bit better. Body. There we go. But yeah, I mean, it is just, it's a massive difference. And then let me see if I can pull up. Oops. Let's pull up the body on this one. So it's good, but when I go to the side, like look at these bright colors that are just completely non-existent on these other ones. Look at that. That's a CMYK. And let's go to RGBO. This is RGBO. This is with fluorescence, guys. This is the impact that it has. It's that top bright edge. Look at how tilted that is, and look at how big. So what it's doing is it's creating brighter colors, which is a lot of the downside of the subtractive color nature of physical printing. Is the more colors you add, the darker it gets. So brightening up colors, you actually like you're pulling back the ink. Okay, I got a couple comments here and pop up to these real quick, and then I'll go back to it. Chicago suburbs. I'm going to be there, Joliet, tonight, and then tomorrow, and then I'm flying back home. I don't think it was much thought process in the RGB. Other companies heard people talking about RGB, so they added it. I also like some companies' motto: "If we build it, they will buy it." Yeah. There's a lot of that, and like I said, one of the things that's happened in the DTF industry is that much of the DTF industry was not traditional printers. So early days of DTF was not screen printers, was not large wide format printers. People that had a lot of printing experience. I'm finding as I've gotten my G7 certification, there are not very many color specialists that are in DTF. There are a lot of color specialists out there that really know their stuff, and I'm starting to connect with them, and I'm learning more by being around them, but they don't have the DTF experience. And so it was almost like we're kind of like out here like doing our own thing and not listening to not looking into what the existing industry had been doing. So I'm kind of doing this both to challenge. I want like if you're watching this later and you have some comments about what I've said, or you think I'm totally off base, please let me know, because I've been playing with this and I don't see a reason why I want red or blue. I don't have a good, like, somebody give me a good explanation why I want red or blue. When what I can produce is far more vibrant and far more bright with the fluorescence added. I think that is the space, and Neo Stampa gives us that ability, because Neo Stampa can integrate those fluorescent colors into the ICC. And part of the reason some of the other softwares struggle with it is because the color engine needs to handle those colors differently. Because if you want a brighter cyan color, you use less of that ink. If you want a brighter fluorescent color, you use more of that ink. So it's actually an inverted algorithm. So the software has to be smart enough to handle those changes and those shifts. The other reason I think that there's probably some limitations on fluorescent is because a vast majority of the industry was using digital factory, which does not handle fluorescence. I've heard rumors they're working on some stuff, but to my knowledge, they don't handle fluorescence in the ICC profile. It's just a part of like a spot color. So if I'm printing up a bright turquoise color, if I'm using extended colors with a fluorescent yellow, the ICC is going to mix in some fluorescent to brighten that up a little bit. And the software, the algorithm, that's basically making the recipe for the ink colors or for the output colors is really, really smart. And it knows how to just mix little bits and pieces of stuff to make it really bright. And one of the ways I've noticed that is that when I'm printing on a fluorescent extended color machine, I can see on the back because the some of the fluorescent inks do like merge into the white a little bit. So does the orange. I've seen that with the ink bank. I've seen it with the DuPont orange colors. Hold on one second. Okay, I'm back. And it'll on the back look like there's using a fluorescent. I'm like, why are we using a fluorescent in that blue color? And when I turn around to the front, it looks flawless. It looks just amazing. And it's because it just recognized that mixing a little bit of that fluorescent, maybe magenta or fluorescent yellow into it, brightened it up a little bit without throwing off the shade. So in my opinion, right now, and also the other reason why a lot of people stay away from fluorescence is there are some really, really bad fluorescent inks out there. Like there are some fluorescents that lose their brightness and their vibrancy by the time they get through the oven. So what I will tell you is that the only fluorescent that I know works well is Inkbank 5600. There are some other brands out there that they're doing fluorescent on their machines. I know because I've talked to some of their folks, and they're losing the vibrancy almost immediately. And so if you're gonna go this extended color with fluorescence route, I would encourage you to use Inkbank, like the 5600 series ink. I know there's a couple other ink companies that are working on some fluorescent extendeds. I have set up systems that were all Inkbank 5600 for CMYK, orange, green, fluorescent yellow, fluorescent magenta. I've also set up systems that were DuPont for CMYK, orange, green, and then Inkbank, fluorescent yellow, fluorescent magenta. I personally think the CMYK colors that it can produce, like DuPont from that standpoint, their CMYK gamut is much bigger, in my opinion, than the Inkbank just CMYK setup. So the fact that it can maybe produce some more colors, it might be a better solution. But right now, either one of those options is good. So in my opinion, in my experience, the best combination right now for both amazing quality color, an accurate color, I think your best solution right now for an extended color is CMYK, orange, green, fluorescent yellow, and fluorescent magenta. I would love at some point to get my hands on a machine that I could like actually test using violet and maybe trying fluorescent magenta or fluorescent yellow as the fluorescent option. So that's my 2 cents on the extended. I am going to delve into the 13 color here in a second, but if you guys have questions, feel free to give me in the chat. I am happy to answer them. But let's talk about this 13 color. I know American Print and Supply, not all American Print Supply, but American Print and Supply. They have a 13 color machine. And I haven't had a chance to personally work on it. I think as I think about color options, it'd be like, oh, well, what if you added like violet? And what if you did orange, green, violet, fluorescent yellow, fluorescent magenta, maybe fluorescent green? Eventually you kind of run out of weird combinations. And the problem with 13 color is that you've got to be doing some kind of restriction on color combinations. So what I could see as a viable solution is like profiling it like it's just a 9 color and only using those certain colors. And so I would use like certain print modes on certain colors, because you're never going to combine all 13 colors, because there is no like the film only handles so much ink volume. It can only take a certain amount of ink before it starts flooding everywhere. And when you are adding 13 different colors or 12 different colors plus white, but you're mixing 12 different colors together, when on a CMYK system, we're limiting the ink to like 280% sometimes, depending on what, versus 400. This gets into some other things, but 400% is 100% of all of the colors, and that was just oversaturate everything. So normally we ink limit down to like the 280, like anywhere between 200 and 300 ballpark, depending on your film. And I think at a certain point, you add so much ink, it's not doing anything. It's just making a mess. And so I don't see a situation where you want to use you wouldn't want to use 13 colors at once. But like I said, there could be an opportunity there to maybe have different profiles. I wasn't talking to you, Siri. Different profiles for different like setups, because if you had like a specific ink color, because you're getting into like Pantone territory where you're mixing, matching, like, well, if I want to print this image, I'm going to use this color, this color, this color, this color, and build a profile for that. Like you can get lost in the weeds real quick, and you can get down the rabbit hole real quick of being like, well, if I do this combination, I can do this. The bottom line is, for most people that are printing transfers, you just want a PNG that comes in to spit out and look amazing. That's what you want, right? Like, and even if you're trying to match a brand color, I guarantee you, with my setup of orange, green, fluorescent yellow, fluorescent magenta, you're going to hit almost all brand colors. Now, you're not going to hit every Pantone, because Pantone is literally its own physical color like world. So you're never going to hit every single Pantone. And you can't really control what the actual color of each of the inks are, because you're just beholden to what the manufacturers do. But with that setup, the orange, green, fluorescent yellow, fluorescent magenta, that extended color setup, you are going to be able to hit pretty much every brand color. You're going to be hard pressed to find when you can't get it dialed into. Now, you may have to use a spot color. You may have to play with it to dial in some of those really tough ones. But for most of you guys, you just want to put something in and have it come out and look freaking amazing. And that's why I think for most of the DTF world, we should be shifting to an orange, green, fluorescent yellow, fluorescent magenta right now. Now, like I said, I'd love the opportunity to test a violet, because I think a violet could make a big impact. But I don't know that. I think you'll lose some of that brightness that we're getting from the fluorescent magenta and yellow. So I don't know that it would offset it enough to make it worth getting rid of one of those fluorescents. So that's my 2 cents. Actually, my $1.50 probably. And I'm sure, because these live streams live forever on YouTube, and I get a lot of people that view the live streams after the fact. So if you are watching this after the fact, do your worst, challenge. I love the conversation. I'd love to be like shown how I misunderstand what the red and blue are doing. Please, somebody show me or tell me. But based on the history of digital and wide format printing, the green and orange are really they're doing the heavy lifting. They're doing the heavy lifting. So my goal was to find other colors that worked better in the space. Now, you guys are going to say, well, Jeremy, the Prestige XL3 does RGBO. Yes, I'm aware of that. And it does look better. Like, again, I think the orange and the green are pulling their heavy weight. And this was actually kind of a little bit of a topic for Tony and I when we were negotiating sponsoring the channel, because he knows that I have some differing opinions. And I said, well, I want to be able to share what I think. And Tony and I have talked about the RGBO color setup for some of these machines. So generally, I'm always going to tell you guys to, if you're buying a DTF Station product, to use their inks, their film, their powder, because they've made this ecosystem kind of work really nicely. And I always want to shout them out. They are a great company. It's why I chose to work with them and have them sponsor these live streams. But I also wanted to be able to call out when I think that stuff could be done better or differently. So that's my 2 cents on that, because I love these guys. And again, I was gone we left on Wednesday to drop my daughter off at college, and I didn't get home and out here to print till yesterday. And I did a cleaning, I did a loading, a cleaning, a nozzle check, cleaned up like the mess that was left from having it do the automated cleanings, and it printed. Like, it was easy peasy. I can't get over this thing. Like how every time I come back, I'm always afraid every time I come back from a long trip. I'm like, this thing's not going to work this time. And it does. So we're going on, let's see, I installed it in May. So May, June, July, August, September. This is going to be the 5th month, and I've left it alone way too often. So great little machine if you're not a shop that runs a lot of big production. Oh, and on the extended color thing, the head count. Head count is a little bit of a funny thing when you do extended colors or talk about extended colors. Now, a lot of the manufacturers are offering extended color versions where it's plumbed properly, but you really need at least a 3 head. That's kind of the minimum. If you're thinking I-3200 print heads, you need a 3 head, because you need one for CMYK, one for orange, green, fluorescent yellow, fluorescent magenta, and one for white. Then you can go to either a 5 head or a 6 head, because a 5 head will work. You have 2 heads that are CMYK, 2 heads that are extended colors, and 1 head that is white. A 6 head will also work, because that 1 head of white can actually handle 2 heads of the other color, of the other colors. So you can get away with a 5 head. A 6 head also works. An 8 head will work. You do 3 CMYK, 3 extended colors, and 2 whites. And then past 8, you get into the silly territory, both for speed as well as other capabilities. But I think a 12 head would probably work, because you could do 4. Yeah, 12 would work fine, because you do 4 CMYK, 4. Actually, I wonder if you get away with. No, yeah, you need to do 4 CMYK, 4 extended colors, and then 4 whites. So anyway, I hope that answered some questions on that. I'm literally going to share this video with people that I'm talking to about extended colors, because when people ask me if I worked on extended color printers, my response is, are you sold on RGBO? Because I can do it. I can profile it. I can. It works. It does work. It does create better color. I just think the red and blue are being wasted. So anyway, that was a lot. If you guys got questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. A couple things as we wrap up today's live stream. We did our tests of the new series of Willet DTFs that we're going to have coming out. We did beach vacation. I did a wetsuit. I did some fins. I did a beach blanket. I did a beach bag. I did a hat, and tested. I did a little bit of scuba diving. I did a little bit of snorkeling. Did a little bit of free diving, a little lounging around on the beach. But we had some good tests, and the results are going to be fun. One of them was not successful, and I got it catastrophically failing on camera, so it's kind of fun. But yeah, so, and then we've got a bunch of stuff coming out this month. those Willet DTFs are going to be coming out this month. I am also furiously working on a course for Neostampa. I've got some folks that are switching over to Neostampa. And so if you have any questions about Neostampa, I'm just more and more, especially with extended colors. It's like the best, the only way to go for extended colors. But even for standard CMYK, a lot less graininess. So I'm working on making some more resources so that as we do talk and push for more folks using Neostampa, we don't have the backlog of people not knowing how to use the software, because there's not a lot of information out there on it. Jonathan, haven't seen the need for extended color gamut for what I print. I'm very happy with the colors. Here's the thing, Jonathan. You can get a lot of amazing colors with CMYK printing, and especially with a well dialed in print mode, the right ink set, the right film combination, you can get amazing colors with CMYK. The folks that really need the extended colors are folks that are trying to do are doing a lot of brand colors, or are trying to push the limits of color. You will notice that there are some colors, some light teals and turquoises that you will probably struggle with, but it's not a bad thing. Like I said, I get great color off of that thing. That print is from that. That print is from that. But yeah, you can get amazing colors out of CMYK. It's just about using the right inks and the right films and the right profile. So you can get amazing colors with CMYK. It is not by any means, like I said, it is impressive how many colors you can produce from a cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. It's just it's amazing. It's magical, quite frankly. Vibrancy by upping the saturation most likely could be achieved just by using the fluorescent colors. But like we said, there's a factor that majority wasn't set up to manage it. Yeah. So vibrancy and saturation are two different things. So one of the other problems with the industry is we use words that mean slightly different things sometimes than they actually mean in the software or in like the actual experience. So, but let's see, that vibrancy by upping the saturation most likely could have been achieved by just. So when you increase the saturation, you're adding more ink to the mix. And in CMYK printing, in physical printing, it's an additive, it's a subtractive color. So the more ink you add, the darker it gets. So to get a more vibrant or bright, depends on what you mean by vibrant, a more vibrant or bright image, you have to reduce the ink, which reduces the saturation. So you see here the push and pull, and why CMYK generally is considered a duller color. The colors tend to be more dull than they are on this computer monitor. And that's because when you try to make it more bright, more vibrant, you lose some saturation. So that's, again, why I think the fluorescents add an element to that mix that causes it to behave a little differently and a little more, in my opinion, like an RGBO or like an RGB computer monitor. So at least that's my experience. And it was really interesting because the last shop I did a fluorescent setup in, we were playing around with the fluorescent colors specifically, and he was like trying to push them, which is fine. And honestly, if you want like the most crazy, ridiculous fluorescence, it's still better to do spot colors. But when I printed him an image of like some skin tones and some other like natural colors, like a set of colored pencils, all this kind of stuff, when I printed that, he was like, oh, wow. So he was like, at first he was like, we were trying to push the colors a little bit, and he wasn't like blown away by it until I printed him a test image that had a bunch of different stuff on it. And then it was at that moment he realized the capability of this thing. And so, like I said, it's not about printing necessarily fluorescence. You can do that. You can print bright, ridiculous, crazy colors. But what those are doing integrated into the ICC is creating better, more accurate, more true to an RGB monitor than anything else out there. So that's what I have to say about that. All right, I'm starting to get a little coughing fit. I need to go get some water. I don't want to cough into your guys' ears. Y'all, thank you so much for tuning in. I got to tell you, it was a little weird not streaming last week. Last week is the first Monday I've not streamed since I started doing this on April 25th. I think that was my first one. So it was definitely a little bit weird to not stream. I will be streaming next Monday before I head out on an East Coast swing. And then the following week, I'm going to do my live stream on Tuesday instead of Monday because I will be wrapping up my East Coast swing on that Monday. And as opposed to like, I thought about pushing out that last job and live streaming from the hotel on Monday. Hotel live streams are lame. The internet is garbage. It's horrible. So my plan will be back Monday next week. And then the following week, it'll be on Tuesday. And then we'll be back to our normal Monday schedule of live streams. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you. If you guys need anything, feel free to reach out, either my email, you got it there, or through my website. And yeah, we'll have some updates on some other projects we're working on. And we will see you so very soon. Bye, guys.